In this video I want to think a little bit about what I'm calling compound licks. I've kind of made that term up. Basically what I mean is taking blues licks, which, as you'll know if you've watched my videos in the past, you can apply to jazz or R&B or funk or whatever, and kind of stitching them together to make longer musical phrases. So a couple of the licks I've looked at in the past are the ones based around this pattern. Okay, which basically consists of doing that and moving up. Okay, I'll include a link to the video where I talk about that one. And another one I've looked at is this one. Okay, again I'll include a link to the video where I discuss that. What I want to look at today is how we can kind of stitch those two together to make one of these compound licks, to use the technical term that I've just invented. Have a look at this. Okay, and again. Okay, what I'm basically doing is playing a very simple lick at the top, joining it into that one, and then coming down onto that one. Okay, so I've got three basic sections going on, and each time I'm moving down to cover a different part of the piano. So I start in that sort of area, I move into this sort of area, and I come down to here. Okay. As with all improvisation, and especially fast jazz or bluesy improvisation, it's much easier to come down than it is to go up. Okay, so reversing this is a lot more complicated, but I'll not deal with that today. We'll just look at it coming down. Let's take it to bits. I'm not suggesting you should copy this lick slavishly and only use it. You know, this is just an example, so use it by all means, but change it, adapt it, do whatever you like with it. At the top I'm doing this. Okay, very simple. Fourth on the G, crushing down onto the E natural from the E flat, and then pivoting on my thumb and going over to my second on the A, and landing with my third on the C. Okay, dead simple. And again, the key in these kind of, sticking licks together to make a long flowing line is getting your fingers in the right place. I'm not saying that you should, slavishly write all these down and sort of marking the fingerings and stuff. It kind of gets instinctive after a while. But the secret is, moving down and down and down, and always having enough fingers left over. So making sure that you're moving over your thumb, and it usually is your thumb that you're moving over, making sure you're moving over at the right point. Okay, so we go, and then we're on to, okay, I made a little video about that lick. There's all sorts of things you can do with that, but I'm just coming down to the G. Okay, and you can crush the E flat to the E natural, you can crush the A flat to the A. Okay. Okay, and again, I've wound up with my thumb on that G, so now for the final bit I'm coming over with my second and my fifth. Okay, so part one, landing my third on the C. Part two, lands my thumb on the G, and over. Now I should say, I didn't sit down for hours going, oh, where do I put my thumb next? Where do I do this? That kind of sprang out of playing the individual licks together, very, individually, playing them really simply, and then my hand just finding its way. So again, the secret of becoming a good improviser, a good blues or jazz player, isn't to sit down and obsess about the theory. It's to play and play and play and let your fingers do the thinking. Okay, just begin to explore and branch out. Okay, but it's worth getting your head around how these kind of licks can work. Okay, I could play around with that much more. That's the other thing, you can extend it all the way down. I'm probably going to go out of camera shot here, but here we go. So just fiddle around with it, play around, and when you learn your basic licks, however you learn them, whether it's through my videos or elsewhere, just try and stick them together. Think about ways you can change them, adapt them, experiment with them, and kind of gum them in together into longer and more interesting runs. Okay? So if you're playing a blues, you could just do this. But after a while it gets a bit boring. So if you can do something like this. You know, it makes it all more characterful and more interesting. I hope that was useful and interesting. If you want to learn some more and you haven't seen my videos before, check out my channel, because I've got like dozens of other things on blues, harmony, pop piano, rock piano, jazz, all that kind of stuff. You might also be interested in my book, How to Really Play the Piano, the Stuff Your Teacher Never Taught You, which has actually got a whole section on improvising 12-bar blues. That's £14.95 if you want the print version, and you can get that if you're in the UK, Europe, the States or Canada. Or right bang now, if you want to look at the copy, you can download the digital edition, which is just £9.95, and you can find out how to get both versions on my website, and I'll include a link to that. Otherwise, take a look around at the channel. If you've got any questions, comments, ideas, suggestions, ideas for videos are always, really welcome. Just give me a shout. Always really pleased to hear from people.